Welcome our new sponsor to the Man at 50 podcast, Scars and Stripes Coffee Company. They empower veterans to build their own business using their e-commerce platform. When you purchase from Scars and Stripes Coffee, you are buying from a veteran, and your purchase directly impacts the men and women who have served our country. Do more than say, thank you for your service. Order today and empower a veteran. Use vet code RICHARD at scarsandstripescoffee.com. That's scarsandstripescoffee.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Man at 50 podcast. I'm your host, S. Richard, author of the book Man at 50, A Journey of Crisis, Revelation, and Survival. So let's get started on the Man at 50 podcast, a podcast that is for you, your little person within you, your hopes, your dreams, and hopefully a new plan for the future. Welcome back, everybody, to the Man at 50 podcast. I'm your host, S. Richard, i.e. Brad Richard, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we are joined by Meick. She is the founder and initiator of a great resource for authors, publishers, anyone in the literary industry. It's called Writers Connection, and it is a fantastic resource. Just so happens I am on the featured author page of this website, so check that out. You can go to Writers Connection and learn more. So welcome. Anne, you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. And
absolutely.
Let's tell the listeners, let's give them kind of the about page of Writers Connection. Why did you start it? And tell them a little bit more about it and, all the resources that are there. It's awesome. It's a great place.
Okay, great. Okay, so Writers Connection. So I am a writer. I've been a writer since I was a child, writing all kinds of short stories, poetry, just fun stuff, hobby for most of my life. And I had an idea about 12 years ago for a writer's community, a place that would bring together writers who had the dream to become an author like I did. I didn't know of a place that existed. I know there were local chapters and groups that you could join. There were ways to reach out to people, but there really wasn't like one place that was a resource for all of these writers that had this dream to become an author. And so I registered the domain. I sat on it for a while. I outlined my ideas, have a lot of ideas for the site and the community. And then life got in the way. I didn't really do much with it. And then a couple of years ago, I just really started thinking, this is something I really want to do for myself. I want to learn the whole process. And in particular, the changes that were happening in the publishing industry. As we all know, with the advent of all the online stuff, Amazon's, those types of resources, it really upended what we call the traditional publishing industry. So for lack of a better term, the archaic process of a writer writing a draft and then sending in a hard copy, writing their synopsis and their query letter, and sending it to all of these different publishers with the dream and the hope and crossing their fingers that they're going to get noticed and picked up, tends to be a dead end for a lot of writers. They get their hopes up, they get a lot of rejections, kind of shoot you in the ego a bit. And there's this wonderful other option, which is self-publishing, which is completely available for any writer that basically wants to educate themselves on how to get their book out there on their own. It takes some skill. And as a writer, we don't always have all of the pieces and parts. We're writers. We know how to get words down on paper. We may not be the best at understanding what editing might look like, or how a book cover should look, or how to market ourselves and when to begin doing that. And so there's so much information that I think writers and authors need to have at their disposal, and it should be in one place. And so I started Writers Connection with that idea in mind. And so I started a website. The website has two pieces to it, two main parts. So the first, there's a public facing side that basically attracts writers and authors to come in and create a profile. Basic profile, not too much information, but enough about yourself and your work in progress or your works in progress. As many of us know, we have multiple things going on when we're writers. And doesn't matter where you are in the process. It could be you're outlining the book. It could be a finished draft you've sat on for 5 or 10 years. Let's get those in there. It's free for authors to sign up. And once they get into the site, there is a whole resource section that opens up for them. The resources section contains articles on writing, editing, the industry in general. There's a private blog in addition to the public blog that you find on the public facing site. There are writing contests. There's all kinds of resources for writers there. The other side of the site is, and this just launched very recently, it's called the Publisher Portal. This is where any kind of publishing professional interested in finding a new book to publish or help publish can come in and search very specifically by keyword and find the exact author and manuscript they're looking for. So they could be a large house, they could be someone that publishes 1 book a year, and they're going to find that exact story they're looking for and a way to directly contact that author to help them. So it's kind of like the backwards of the traditional industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the general idea of what Writers Connection is and what I've created.
Awesome. How many members do you have, or how many, people do you have on the website that have actually signed up and they're part of the group?
Sure. So I soft launched the site late 2017. I officially launched it in the beginning of 2018. So here we are, technically in our 3rd year. I'm going to call it more of like 2 years of having this out there. I have over 1,000 authors that have voluntarily signed up, and I approve them on my end. I come in and make sure that they're legitimate. They have, what they're writing is, something someone's going to want to search for on the site. So I have approved over 1,000 authors that have, most of them have more than 1 book in the works. And it covers every genre I have listed on the site. I have multiple signups for all of the genres I've listed.
Cool. Now, do you have publishers that are on the site as well? I mean, that have joined as publishers?
I do have some that have joined, and right now my marketing efforts are really heavy on attracting what I call publishing professionals. So these are going to be publishers, they're going to be agents, they're going to be service providers that are specifically looking to help authors get published. So they could be, in the editing realm, they could be doing design for book covers, or just helping in general with the self-publishing process. So yes, all of those publishing professionals have a way to get through. And again, it is regulated. I am looking at everyone that's reaching out to the site and trying to connect with this community. So I want to make sure that they are a good fit for the community.
Cool. Is it just in the United States, or, do you have members like throughout the world?
It's throughout the world.
Oh,
it is international. And I tend to run giveaways just to kind of attract new writers. I've given away electronics, I've given away cash for helping self-publish. So there's always some kind of like incentive for them to kind of join the site, because people are skeptical sometimes about signing up a profile. They don't want to give their email address or whatnot, but this is a pretty tight community, so none of this is being shared except within the publishing and writing community.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. There is so many people out there that are doing funnels, and I won't mention any names, but I signed up for a program, bought some information, and I'm getting 6 or 7 emails per day with different offshoots and different people that are connected to it, and it's like, swipe your card for this, swipe your card for that, and I'm just like, whoa. So that's a good point, because I think all of us are kind of leery, and we're just kind of beat up with all these sign up today, sign up today. And I admit I do it myself. It's on my website.
Right.
It's on my website. It's in the podcast, and I ask people to do that as well, to sign up and get connected. I really don't use any funnels.
No.
I don't. I myself personally, I'm not formulating a database so that I can utilize that in the future. And I've been told that I should be doing that, but it's very time consuming,
Yep.
and I don't want people to feel the way I do when I get caught into that circle of never-ending marketing material. It's crazy. It stifles the
Yeah.
creativity. So that's what it's all about when it comes to authors. They really don't they don't want to get buried in all that. So
Absolutely
um,
not. And
now,
I do have an email list I've created, and I'm very specific about when you sign up on this site and become part of the community as an author, you're going to get basically 5 emails over a week, a week spaced out each one, and it's going to introduce you to the site and how you can use it and the benefit it has for you. After that, it's just going to be one-off, like quarterly updates or anything important that you might want to know about. But I do not bombard anyone with emails and advertising and things like that.
cool. Yeah, I haven't been bombarded from you or the Writers Connection. I can give a testimonial that I signed up as an author,
Awesome.
and I get just enough to
Good.
keep me interacting, and I get just the right amount. So
Excellent.
everyone, don't worry about it. Just go over to Writers Connection, and the link to it will be in the show notes, along with other ways to connect with Anne and the group there. So don't worry about it. You'll be safe, and you won't be spammed, if that's I don't think that's a word, but yeah, we won't fill your inbox. They won't fill your inbox up, so that's good. Tell me what is your vision, or what is the goal, the overlying goal of Writers Connection? Where do you see it going, and what are your plans? What are your plans with it?
Right. So good question. So I have big goals for this community. Number one, it's educational and it's connecting people. So I want, authors to come out of the woodwork. We all tend to write alone and do things independently. So I want, number one, and first and foremost, for writers and authors to feel like they're not alone. They have a community to join. All the resources are here if they need it. We all need help and support, and there's lots of things we need to learn and continue to understand, especially in this changing industry and what all the options can be for you as an author. I want to grow this community to be really the premier place to come. If you are writing a book, you have an idea for a book, you've written 5 books, but you haven't published any of them. I want these writers and authors to support each other, in addition to having the resources and the leverage that they need to get to be a successful published author and to realize that dream. We have several social media channels associated with this community. I push a lot of content out, a lot of articles, things I write, things guest writers write, other things I find out there, events, just anything in general that has to do with writing and publishing. And so I've been building up the social media side to this. I have a YouTube channel I'm starting. I have lots of ideas for it. I think I'm going to start off with like tips and tricks for writing and things like that, and then do things like interviews with authors and all of those things to help build that educational piece up as well. I also am looking at starting a publishing company. I want to probably start out with an anthology. I'll probably do early next year. I want to spend the rest of this year focusing on young writers. I want to reach out, and I'm in the process of reaching out to a lot of writing professors, high school and college level, who are teaching creative writing, teaching all aspects of writing and publishing, and really just kind of getting them on the radar and letting them know that this is a resource for their students, and just helping get those students in the young writer world excited about what they're doing and to remain passionate about it. So that's something else I have up my sleeve.
Cool.
Yeah, lots of stuff, actually. I've got lots of ideas.
Well, I
remember to pace myself.
I have some additional questions, and as
Sure.
far as the direction, of
Mhm.
where the Writers Connection is going. Some of those questions I think I'll save for part two for this
Yeah.
for the second part when we come back from our break. We'll be taking that shortly here, and then the second part when we come back in, I have some other questions and ideas. So
Awesome.
when you talk about now, this is just my opinion, and we'll kind of go off topic slightly.
Yeah.
Um, do you think I have found myself? I mean, I just as of recently, as a year ago. I mean, I just entered into the literary industry a year ago. Um, Started with a manuscript, and then self-published my autobiography, and then from there it just ballooned into so many other aspects, from the website to the podcasting to the mentoring to the speaking publicly, um, and I have ran across so many amazing human beings with their stories, their challenges, their inspiration, just the overall um, discovering of people where you just go, humanity is really not as bad as I thought it was. And have you found that the more interaction that you have had with writers, storytellers, that it's like the exact opposite of what we're seeing, for example, today on the news, where there's chaos and anarchy and things are breaking out, and the seams are kind of like busting,
Yes.
all over the place. Um, I know I was watching the news and the events around the United States prior to getting on a live event that was on Facebook. It was a Blue Talks live event, and my mind shifted from what was going on throughout the country, and when I popped into that group, it the whole group was filled with people that was positive, that were strong. They were healthy, mentally speaking. They were healthy, and they were positive, and they greeted everyone. And um, it was a quantum shift for my mindset, and it went from wow, everything is so devastating right now. And then I popped into this group, and it took me to a completely different place. So have you found that yourself, that it's like, I want to stay in the positive world instead of the negative world? I mean, tell me what you think.
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree with you. I feel like, I jump on a social media feed personally, and everyone's, saying what they think about what's going on in the world, and they're complaining about stuff, and we need to change this, we need to change that. And yes, I understand that part of the world today. But yes, connecting with writers and just people in general in the writing community, you know, even in my own business here on social media, it's overall it is very positive. People are very kind. Um, they're very creative, obviously, and it's kind of an escape for them, what they do. They have stories to tell, whether it's a true story or they're writing fiction. They have things they want to say, and it just overall seems very positive to me. The interactions I've had, what people say, they lift each other up, they're complimenting each other, because we all need that, especially being a writer. It's a very personal thing you're putting out there, and I think we tend to understand that need and that desire to be positive and to build each other up.
Hmm.
The complete opposite of what we're seeing in the world.
Exactly, and that's kind of what started that question or that thought in my mind, because um, I attend a lot of virtual events. I interact with a whole lot of people online, not as much in person at the moment, but that will hopefully change in the future.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess taking a positive message, or taking some of these amazing stories and amazing challenges that people have overcome, um, taking that, or sharing that and getting it out to the world as much as possible is, I think it's such an important um, task, an important journey. And I've recently started having guests on the podcast because I want to feature more and more people
Hmm.
and more of their stories. Because, you know, I've transitioned from a codependent, struggling adult, living the life of a child, to becoming a man at 50, you know, that with my book.
Yes.
And I've transitioned to a place of now it's time for me to pay back to society, give back to society, and help other people. And if people only knew the resources that were out there, the groups, the people like yourself that are reaching out to others to give them a platform or to give them a resource to get their story out there. Um, for me, getting my story out there was very, very therapeutic.
Yes.
It was super healing. It healed so many things, um, and you know, so I'm very excited about the potential of the world and the stories and the people of strength that are standing for something positive. And more than ever, it is so needed.
Yes.
And I encourage the listeners, you know, that they need to tap into their heart, their feelings, their mind, their soul, their spirit. Um, there is a story in every single one of us. And
Absolutely.
I encourage, and you probably will agree with me on this, I encourage the listeners, don't die with your story inside. You have to tell your story. There
Absolutely.
is somebody out there, and it may not be someone in your own town, may not be someone
Hmm.
even in your own state, but there is somebody out there in the world that will benefit from your story, and you will grow unbelievably so by expressing it and sharing it and making yourself vulnerable to other people.
Yep.
So um, that's, you know, I can't say it enough. There's so many things for people to tap into. Don't focus in on the negative. You have to spend some time with all the negative stuff,
Right.
because if you don't, then when you transition to a group of people or transition to something online that's positive, um, the level of appreciation is not the same. That was like a slap in the face for me this morning. I went from the news to positive, motivational, great people that were supportive, and then looking forward to our interview today. And it's all good stuff. It's all good
Ab-
stuff. And while we're in that good place, you completely forget about all the chaos that's going around, you know, that's going on around you. So,
Agreed.
um, and you have found that. Um, if you would, before we go to break here, we have a few minutes before we go to break. Can you share an inspirational story or an inspirational person that you have met that really made a difference to you and your own mindset, your own dreams, your own goals, and something that was really powerful and was very impactful, if that's a word, to you. And if you could share that with the listeners, that would be great, I think, before we go to break.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a specific person necessarily, but I tend to, gravitate towards people that are creative and driven. A lot of business people, a lot of creatives, artists, writers, things like that. So I think in general, just surrounding myself by people like that, and watching them grow. I've watched friends recently, just with the change in the world and being home more, just really kind of focus and dive into a passion, start that business they wanted to start. I have a good friend that just started basically like a nutrition and fitness business, and has been a passion of hers for years and on her mind, and she's just diving headfirst in and she's killing it.
Awesome.
That is just, it's so inspiring to watch, because when you are passionate about something like we're doing here, you don't, you eat, breathe, and sleep this. You are constantly thinking, what is the next good thing I can do with this? And you're hooked into a passion when you feel that way about it 24 hours a day.
Hmm.
So I'm watching friends and colleagues kind of come out of their shells and do things that they've always wanted to do because they're realizing, now is the time. There's no point in waiting on this or being scared or thinking someone might not like it. My motto anymore is like, you really can't care too much about what people think. There's going to be someone out there that, like you said, likes your story, learns something from you, connects with it. You got to put it out there. You have to be willing to take that chance.
Absolutely. In terms of passion, we're seeing very passionate people in the news. We're seeing people that are very passionate about something, that is important to them. But I think there's a decision that we all have to make, as far as what direction do we want our passion to take us,
Right.
And is it building or is it tearing down? I've basically surrounded myself with people that are moving forward, that have a passion for life, they have a passion for others. And, I think the biggest takeaway from where we're at right now as a country is involving ourselves in other people's lives in one way or another. Because, the solitude, well, we've all been sheltering in place like forever. And so we really we've had a lot of solitude. But the online, the virtual connections, I think, are growing exponentially, because people are craving that interaction with other people. And it's so important that we connect with other people, give of ourselves to others. That's a karma thing. I think we'll get that back tenfold, without even having to ask for it. And so what I'm doing and what you're doing with the Writers Connection, you're reaching out to people and saying, come here, we'll help you. Come here, this will be your support, group, and we'll be glad to help you get through that journey or get through that passion. So,
Right.
with that being said, I do have my other questions in my head, but I'm going to wait till we come back from break. So we're going to take a short break for our sponsor, and it'll be short, I promise. And we'll be right back with part two. We have been speaking with Meick. She is the founder and creator of the authors marketplace called the Writers Connection. Awesome website, lots of resources, and we'll be right back to talk with Ann a little bit more. Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. They have great creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, and it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you'll need to make a podcast in one place. Check them out and download the free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm to get started. And we are back. That was our sponsor break. And we are talking with Meick with Writers Connection. And welcome back, everybody, to the Man at 50 podcast. I'm your host, S. Richard. And did you make it through the break?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, well, yes. I took care of some business on the break, so we are good. I can last at least another 20 minutes or so. So
Great.
When we left off the first part, I said I had some additional questions, and kind of where I wanted to go with the interview in the second part is, do you have plans on the Writers Connection for audio tutorials, video tutorials, kind of like a learning resource or a learning resource, like a page where they can go there to learn, like a little education portal?
Yes, I actually do have plans for that. Good insight there. So I actually come from the e-learning world. I worked in small business and e-learning for about almost 15 years. So I'm very much a supporter of online courses, interactive learning, audio, any way to be able to access new information and be able to reference it and learn new stuff. So absolutely. I think there's a lot of good pieces to the writing and publishing process that lend themselves well to something like that. So yes, that is definitely on the future plan list that is continually growing for my ideas here.
Cool. And that'll probably go along with when you get ready to launch the publishing part of it. Is the publishing, do you have a name, or, I mean, when you launch the publishing company aspect of it, is it going to be separate from the Writers Connection, or is it going to be, how do you plan on integrating that? Because I know there's going to be authors listening that's like, well, I got to check this out, because
absolutely, it'll definitely be under the umbrella of Writers Connection, definitely. And as for a name, that's probably the hardest part I've been thinking about for a long time. I really want a good name, so I'm still whittling that one. But yeah, it'll definitely be part of Writers Connection. It will not be a separate entity. Okay. It'll be connected. It'll be all part of the community. So it'll be an offshoot of Writers Connection and completely relevant and connected to that world.
Okay. Yeah, the reason why I asked that is to lead into the next question or statement. I know with self-publishing, there's a lot of self-publishing companies out there. If you pay them enough money, they will kind of take you through the steps and stages. The formatting, the editing is painful.
Yes.
You almost have to be drunk to get through it. I mean, for me, it was just, that was blunt, but I mean, I was just like, OMG, the editing was tough.
Right.
And so, but I mean, they take you through the steps and stages, and they say, okay, now you have to do this, and we're going to send you this file back, and you have to make these changes. Then you have to click these buttons to submit the changes, and it was a step-by-step process. I went through a company called Outskirts Press.
Okay.
And they did all the creation part of it. I provided the manuscript and the story, and they did the steps and stages. But it's still, as an author, I still had to be like extremely involved in all their steps. And they were like, they would send me emails and say, well, you have to respond to this in so many days or so many hours if we're going to meet this deadline. And so it was really frustrating for me, to try to meet those different deadlines and steps. So that's where the audio or the video tutorials would come in handy from a publisher standpoint. And, I'm hoping that when you launch the publishing company aspect of the Writers Connection, that your authors that sign on to it will have a resource or resources to kind of take them through the process. So, because I went into it clueless. I didn't know what they were going to ask me.
Right.
When they said, well, we're going to format the book, and we can't do that. We can't move the text that way. There's a gap in the text, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's just going to look weird. And I'm like, but I don't like it. And it's like, well, sorry, our formatter can't do anything with it. And I wish I would have had information before knowing that. And so, they didn't really have that. And for me, I had a hard time with the customer service aspect of it and being able to get real-time help. They're a great company, but that's why I said I think it's super important for people to have access to feedback, which is real-time, and helping them go through the process, because there's a lot of steps. You just don't print it out at Office Max or Staples. Slap on some staples and you're good. There's so much to
No. Yeah, there's so many steps to this. And there's so many options. Self-publishing really puts you in control. But you also have to understand there's a lot of responsibility, a lot to learn. It's like running your own little business. You really need to understand all the ins and outs of everything from writing your draft to getting it sold in whatever format that is. And there's multiple formats. The one thing that all authors need to be able to do, no matter how they're published, whether it's traditional or self-published, is they need to know how to market themselves. And they need to start that before the book is done.
Right, beforehand.
Something I've learned and have been trying to share out. It is so vitally important that you are involved and understand how to sell what you're writing, if that is indeed the outcome that you want. If you're looking to make a living or supplement a living from your writing, you're going to have to learn that process.
Well, along with the tens of millions of other people that are self-marketing and self-publishing, and the marketing aspect is so intense. I'm sure you've been contacted by dozens and dozens of companies that claim to help you do this and that and this and that and all these different things. I had a company contact me. They wanted to create webinars for me, and that they would use ads online to promote the webinar attendance. And it sounded fantastic. And then they said it's like 12 grand. And I'm like,
yep.
Did you say $12,000? And it's and it's like, when we'll do this and this. And so I guess for me, the struggle was to do enough marketing or to do enough variations. Because you can't just do one thing. You can't just do social media. Right. You can't just do podcasts. You can't just do Facebook ads or Google ads, or you can't just do one thing. You have to put yourself out there in multiple areas, multiple genres or platforms.
Yes.
But that also brings to you a lot of companies that make a really good living on charging massive amounts of money to a place where you supposedly are going to get results, but that's tough. So what is your plans in terms of that moving forward with authors?
That's a huge part of this is number one, educating a writer author on what their options are. You've got your traditional publishers. You've heard of vanity publishers, which is what you're pretty much talking about, are companies that can come in and they see you're putting a book out, you're starting to talk about it, and they're like, hey, for $10,000 we can do this for you. There's a lot of scams out there you need to be aware of. They're always popping up new. And then your last option is to do completely everything yourself and really educate yourself on every single piece of the process. I want to help review all of these steps, and I have in the works right now, I'm reviewing certain tools, and also some of these companies that come out that even myself are being contacted by. I'm investigating them, and I want to write up what it is that they're about. Like, what is it that they're offering? What are the things to look out for as a new writer or author who's excited to put a book out and you don't want to be taken advantage of? So I'm putting this kind of stuff out on my blog. I'm reviewing tools. I'm reviewing some of these companies. So that's a big focus right now, because I think it's important to, you don't want to be out there swimming alone,
Right.
You want to stay within the community, stay within the resources, and have someone to be able to ask questions to. I even have a LinkedIn group where I put questions out, and I'm encouraging people to ask your questions. And let's get all the answers out there, because we want you to be successful in the end. We don't want you spending a bunch of money and then finding out that it just didn't work out the way you thought.
What a couple other questions as far as you mentioned that, it's possible for you to do everything yourself if you educate yourself well enough. What is your opinion on KDP, on the Kindle Direct Publishing, where basically you can publish a book for little to no money, but there is massive amounts of things you have to learn to do it. If you're, if you want to save tons of money, you can do it, but be prepared
Right.
to learn a lot of stuff on your own.
And yeah, I'm currently in the process. I've started a large blog post just in general on that particular option. I want to share all the details about how it works and what the pros and cons are. Because sometimes you'll sign up or associate yourself with something like that, and then you realize later that, oh, now I can't advertise my book on this other platform, or you have to understand the loopholes and what you're actually signing up for, what you're going to get out of it. So I think it works. It just depends on what your outcome is. It really depends what your book's about, what you want out of it as a writer. There's a lot of options out there. That's one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've heard some good things with KDP.
Sure.
I myself, I'm a talker, and I'm into expression. I'm not really into the technical stuff, because I looked at KDP and said, I just no, I just, that wouldn't work for me and my personality, as far as absorbing that and then putting it into practice. But for some people, I know that it works.
I say go with your instinct in that case.
Yeah.
And, you can always do something later on down the line, but I think it's best to get the information up front and really assess, is this a good fit for me? Because this is all about customization too. I mean, this is why I love interviewing authors and featuring them on Writers Connection, is because everyone's publishing story is unique and different. And they're all going to have positives to share, and they're going to have things that they wish they did differently. And it's a unique journey, and what works for one author may not work for another. So I want to be able to put all that out there and allow the author to intelligently create their path and feel comfortable asking questions and know that they're going to get a good answer somewhere.
Right. Well, yeah, as far as the listeners go, you need to understand this, people, that the literary field or the writing industry, writers and authors, and I say this from personal experience, they are the most helpful people you will ever encounter in your life when it comes to that network of people. It's not as competitive. Like, I'm not telling you that because you may sell more books than me. I mean, you don't get that. That's not an overwhelming issue that's present. They are willing to help in any way, and they don't see other authors and writers as competition in any way. And so it's not like the music industry. In my opinion, the music industry is extremely cutthroat. And I don't think the writing industry is that way at all.
No.
I think people are just more than happy or more than willing to help you out in any way.
In fact, I mean, if you say you're writing a nonfiction book about a specific topic, it's in your best interest to read other books like that and connect with those authors and find out, if anything, find out how you can make yourself different. What do you have to offer that's slightly different than that or unique? And I find people are more than willing to share their information and stories and support each other. It's not competition at all. It's a support network.
Yeah. And I never really understood how accepting people were. I did my social platforms. I did the Twitter, the LinkedIn. I didn't do the website, but I did the Twitter, LinkedIn, and I had an author page on Outskirts Press. But I did that way before my book came out. My book came out last September, and my audiobook was released in December of last year. But I did a lot of stuff before it ever came out, and it was people's reaction. They were supportive. But they were like, well, you don't really have anything though, so we're not going to support you, 100%, because you're saying that you might release this book. You might be published in the future. And it was kind of funny. They approached it with caution, but
Hmm.
once it was released, it was just a flood of support and cheers and
Oh
congratulations.
yeah.
How can we help? Because you became part of a very, very large, very massive group of people worldwide. Um,
Yeah.
where you just instantly became accepted because you published something, and that's
Yes.
really all they needed. And it's like, okay, you can join
You
the club
crossed the
now.
finish line.
Yeah, you published, you have a 15-page booklet, you're in, and it's something like that where they're very
Oh
accepting.
yeah. It's very accepting. You get high fives, pats on the back. You've crossed the finish line at that point. You are officially published author. And I want to help all of these writers, all of these people. I know there's so many out there that have all these great ideas and are just timid to start the process because they don't know. Can I do this? What's
Hmm.
going to happen? That is the whole point behind this effort of mine. Is so many people I talk to just have ideas and stories in them. Everyone does, and I want to get those stories out there.
Hmm.
I
Well,
want them to feel confident enough and build them up enough to be able to do it.
and you know, to put the writer's connection into perspective, it's one more group or one more network of people where authors or future authors can step into, where they're going to be accepted and helped, and encouraged to move forward with their passion, their story, their hurt, their pain, their baggage from the past,
Mm-hmm.
and that type of thing. And when you look around in society, really the question is, where else can we find that? People look for that every day, every week. They're wanting to be part of something bigger.
Yeah.
um, for men, it's like sports. They want to be part of the winning team. They want to be part of the Super Bowl. They want to have a Super Bowl ring, yada yada yada. I mean, everybody wants to be part of something. And it's really hard for people to find um, the right group, or the right group of people that are going to be accepting. And
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us, we look for that every single day. We want to be part of something bigger. We don't want to be part. The majority of the people don't want to be part of what we're seeing now
Right.
in America. I don't want to be part of that. That's very
Mm-hmm.
distracting, very destructive to myself and others. But those people also, even though what they're doing is negative and destructive, um, they too are looking for something to belong to and be part of something bigger. It's negative, but they're wanting the same thing. They're wanting to be something. They're wanting to be part of something bigger and more important. They want to be part of that, and so um, I encourage my listeners. I know Anne encourages the listeners to be a part of something and contribute to the world by putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, but rest assured that you will be accepted into a positive, well and well-intentioned group of people. Um, I've met thousands all over the world. I know you have as well. Um, and it's an amazing group of people doing the right things for the right reasons. I really believe that you know if if you can think it, you need to get it down on paper and you need to share it with people. And just that's your way of giving to other people. Look at it as you're not really talking about yourself, you're sharing yourself with other people, and that's the easiest way to do it, I think. So what's your opinion on that? Because we're going to wind down here. We're getting down to
Yeah.
towards the end. So um, what are your final words of wisdom, and let us know the easiest way to connect with you and the Writers Connection online.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely, to everyone out there who's got a story in them, tell your story. Someone out there is going to want to hear it. They're going to learn from it. It might change their life, even if it's one person. So don't be timid. You know, we all come from that place. I think in general, writers tend to be more introvert. They're putting their thoughts out there. It's a scary thing to do, but believe in yourself. You do have an audience for what you want to say. And, you know, I'm here to help kind of draw that out of you, give you a plan, give you a reason to do this. And so, and to show that there's a ton of support out there and good people that want your story told. So that's pretty much that Writers Connection in a nutshell, is just wanting to inspire people to tell their stories and to give them what they need to get it done.
I think it's an awesome platform. It's an awesome marketplace. I encourage the listeners to check it out. We are going to have in the show notes for today's episode the link to the Writers Connection, where you can sign up and fill out your profile and become a member of this awesome group. You can also connect with them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and we'll put those links all in the show notes. That'll be the easiest way for people to get there, other than writing it down and listening while we say it. You know, www. And I'm never good at that. I never write the link down right. It's like www. What did they say? So we'll just put the links in the show notes. But it's been great to have you on the show, Ann. I know that we connected through LinkedIn, and then I checked out the Writers Connection. You were nice enough to have me on there as a featured author, so I'm currently on the site. If people want, they probably don't need to know any more about me. Most of my stuff's already out there, but I am there as a featured author, along with others there. And that's just one drop-down menu. There are several things to choose from there at the Writers Connection. So I encourage the listeners, whether you're listening to this on the release date or later on, several days or weeks afterwards, check out the Writers Connection and connect with Ann Meick. She is the founder, and she created the Writers Connection to help writers. Her heart's in the right place. She is on a mission to help all of you get your stories out there in the hands and minds of other people around the world. So I want to thank her once again for being on the show. And I am assuming that the first author to be published under your up and coming new publishing company will be you. Is that right?
I hope so. Okay. That seems to be the plan.
You'll kick off the publishing company with your first book. So that'll be great.
I will keep you in the know.
Yes, keep us updated. If you want, the best place to go is the Writers Connection for all the updates, and check it out. I think it's a great resource, and I think you won't be disappointed. And it's there for you. It's there to help you. So, all right, folks,
we are going to.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks, Ann, for joining us on the Man at 50 podcast. We are going to wrap it up for this episode. Thanks so much. To get updates on what I'm doing, you can always go to the website, www. There I go. I'm going to give a website. Mine's easy, www.bradrichard.net. That's the website. Check it out. Go to the mentors page. We also have another sponsor of the show, Scars and Stripes Coffee, supporting veterans throughout the United States. So check them out as well. And just check out the website for any updates. And the podcast is on Anchor FM. So until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, always love your little me. Take care of yourself, and bye for now. This has been the Man at 50 podcast. Please join us next week for another episode, and you can visit our website at outskirtspress.com/man at 50 the book.